Join the conversation.
Join the conversation.
You're with CapeTalk.
Okay, so in this first part of, or this last part of the hour, we're going to talk about what we should be celebrating in South Africa. Maybe things that we've forgotten about, things that we don't know about. I personally feel that there's a lot that we should be celebrating. I'm not quite certain what it is. And that's why we asked Daniel Den Hollander, our go-to clinical psychologist, to help our thinking. So yeah, what good is there about South Africa? Look, Peter from Ocean View is our Rasta brother, and he wades in often. He writes, "Morning, Clarence and CapeTalk. Just a thought. I love all my South Africans, black, white, coloured, Indian and others, to bits. What kind of South African are you?" Peter in Ocean View asking me that question. I was like, thinking about it, I am really just wanting to be a citizen of planet Earth. But my responsibility is beyond that. I've got to take responsibility beyond that. But I so badly just want to be a citizen of planet Earth. So I am a citizen of planet Earth, Peter, in response, with a unique Southern African perspective that I think can inform the world positively, and Pan-African perspective as well. I don't even know if that's an answer. Is that an answer?
Yeah, I mean, I'm starting to think as you're talking, as you're discussing. I think what's beautiful about the current world, or this sort of new world that we have, you know, especially social media has given us that access, that ability to connect, is that the global means something now. I think back in the day when we were pen palling to each other, you know, it would take a week or 2 weeks for a response to come back. Now it's immediate. So I was thinking, you know, yesterday I was playing an online game, Settlers of Catan online, and I was playing with a whole array of different nationalities, and we were talking about each other's experiences on ground level. So, you know, we are so connected. So the global community is a lot more reachable and connectable. But there is also something about our current context. You know, I'm living in South Africa. I chose to live in South Africa when the decision came, and so happy on making that decision. And there's definitely a love for me towards the country, and towards the citizens, towards the zeitgeists, and the difficulties and the social ills that we've got. Is something that I want to get my teeth into and try and in my own little way, in my own little corner, try and apply Ubuntu where there's a possibility and an opportunity to do so. And I think to that extent, the question that we phrase it to, is an important one, because we come from a history where we don't celebrate ourselves. And I think that's across board, across worldviews, socioeconomic levels, racial levels, cultural levels. That's something that for me is so apparent about the South African condition, is we're so bad at being able to celebrate what is beautiful, what is unique, and what is amazing about us.
Okay, you're still not telling us what's amazing about us. Come on. Daniel Den Hollander, give us something to celebrate.
You see, as a psychologist, I'm more interested in the why than in the what. But look, I mean, we're a country that, I think we've proven that this week, is that we're a country that's willing to have difficult conversations that other people are scared to have. I think that came out very strongly. I might get flack for that, but at least we're having the conversation. We are a country that is not scared to make mistakes on the bigger levels. I think where we have a difficulty is that we become overly focused on the political aspects of South Africa, and miss the ground level initiatives that are at play there. We play an enormous role in organizations like Doctors Without Borders, Gift of the Givers. I know that we were quite involved in regards to, on the international scale, around telehealth, in regards to the areas that are in conflict right now, that desperately need medical health. We're seen internationally as an authority in regards to providing care to areas with limited resources. We're seen as an authority around dealing with work around trauma. We're seen as an authority around medicine, believe it or not. Lots of, every year we get lots of medical doctors from international countries coming here to do their internships and their training programs because of the world-class medical expertise that we have, our legal system, which I really think, and our court system, which I really think are world class, keeps us in contention and manages to keep us to some degree quite safe. Music, art, we bring so much into the world in regards to being able to be honest and reflective in the way in which we present. We can express. There's an honesty within South Africa. The difficulty for us is the fact that we don't always recognize that and we don't always see it. And I think there's reasons why, but I'm going to piecemeal that progression. Let's pause there for now.
Okay, so you say this past week has been very significant to that conclusion that you've reached. Are you talking about the court case?
To an extent, look, it's a difficult topic to have an opinion on, right? Because we know that it's probably a bit too soon in regards to be able to reflect on it. That being said, I think what is really, really important in regards with that is it showed something of the position that, and I'm hoping that I'm right when I say this, of the position of where South Africa, especially from an advocacy side and a legal side, wants the position itself. And I think the most bravest thing in regards to that is the fact that we can talk without looking at who's listening. And that speaks to...
It's not a conscience, you say.
Say it again?
There's not a conscience there.
I think when we talk with an eye out towards others to validate whether or not what we say is correct or not correct, then we silence ourselves and censor ourselves. There was a confidence there.
I hear what you're saying, but there's a lot of pride, nearly, in the position that we took last year at the International Criminal Court of Justice. And just can you deactivate your mind or your brain and just feel with us through these kind of issues? Because I think it's very difficult. In my particular instance, there's pride about the position that we take at the ICJ, but I don't see us being consistent about that. I see a lot of hypocrisy in that action as well. How do I reconcile that? I would like us to be the conscience of the world when it comes to racism, and for that reason, we need to take sides where necessary. We can't be selective. If it means it is Russia on the receiving end or Mohammed al-Bashir, we got to be principled in history and the responsibility that history gives to us. And I don't see us necessarily being committed.
I think this is one of the biggest plagues and one of the biggest cancers in the world at this point in time is the fact that we believe in a world of binaries. We believe that we live in a world of good versus evil. And the issue with that is that we will inherently believe that we are good. Therefore, whoever opposes us must be evil. And that kind of binary thinking, one or the other, good versus bad, black versus white, yes versus no, is exactly the kind of type of thinking that completely nullifies us as I don't know what to call ourselves, a species, a human race, because it immediately censors important initiatives around humanity. We should be fighting for, like Madiba said, we cannot rest until all social inequality, all structural violence has ended. And I think that has to come in at the fore. It's not about choosing a side, it's about choosing life and principle.
Which is human rights.
Yeah.
That should apply equally to everybody in the world.
Yeah, but I think there's an important notion in what you say is we seem to always be able to make these stands when it comes on these bigger scale worldwide dilemmas. What's a lot more courageous is to be able to do it on ground level. Our prejudice towards the person who's working with us or working for us. The decisions and the skepticism that we sometimes have towards, especially people who work for us, who are doing a service for us, and the way in which our own prejudice creeps into there. I mean, for example, we know that during lockdown, a lot, or even the taxi strike that happened in Cape Town, how many people allowed people to risk their lives in order to clean their houses. I mean, that's just absolutely grotesquely despicable that we would put people's lives at risk and that it was sort of just a given. It's that kind of thinking. The thinking of complaining about taxis stopping at the side of the road, making our lives difficult, but then also being very upset that the lady who might be rendering a service to you
Arrives
late and not seeing the contradiction in your own hypocrisy around that. And I think that's where I get quite upset is that we sort of nonchalantly talk about these values on the international scale, not realizing that it's the same momentum, it's the same principle of Ubuntu. You know, your humanity is in the way that I treat you. And Ubuntu can become a critical leg there too, because what humanity are you bringing out into the world? Is it only through the way in which you speak, or is it through the actions in which you do? Look at our driving, for example. The amount of aggression and the amount of selfishness in which we drive. Luckily, I had a whole bunch of drivers who gave me right of way so I could make it here on time today. And that does something. They
gave you right of way?
It was beautiful.
You're lucky, man.
I even had a taxi give me right of way.
Okay, that's aggressive driving. Somebody wades in. Somebody writes, F. Scott Gerald famously wrote, the test of a first-rate intelligence is the ability to hold two opposing ideas in mind at the same time and still retain the ability to function. One should, for example, be able to see that things are hopeless, yet be determined to make them otherwise.
Beautiful.
It doesn't need more than that. Then there's a voice note in. Let's take a listen to the voice note.
Just want to say I really agree with your speaker about South Africa being willing to have difficult conversations other countries are not. I'm on a business forum with a couple of people from other countries, and one of the things I've noticed is that they are generally much quicker to skirt around issues that South Africans will, on a good day, face head on, and that does make me very proud to be a South African. Thanks for the great show. Johan from Capri.
Yeah, I think I'll take it. I think I'll celebrate that.
Yeah.
I don't think we're going to shy away from issues,
Yeah.
Okay, somebody writes, we need to change thinking. We need to change thinking, but the poor also need to. An eye-opener. I'm not quite certain what you mean by that. I don't know if you want to join us on the conversation, because we want to learn together. Maybe Amy will try and reach you, and then you can explain what you mean by that, but maybe you have a sense of what he's meant by that.
You know, the term poor is a funny one as well, right? Because it only talks about poor on one basis, on a socioeconomic basis, if that's what we assume is what is meant there. And I think that's exactly what Biko was trying to go against, was be careful of the narratives in which you define yourself. His one was in regards to the term Bantu. And Bantu is just the Zulu word for people, right? There is a Zulu word for people. But Bantu became used in general sense within the South African narrative as meaning something that was inferior. And so for Biko, it was important, that's how black consciousness came to be, was that he used a different word to define himself. He used the word black, and then immediately started a campaign of black is beautiful. So when we say black, then we say black is beautiful. Because for him it was important to change the narratives, because the most powerful weapon in the hands of the oppressor is the mind of the oppressed. And I think it starts there. It starts with how do we create the agency in order to be able to define ourselves. And structural violence by there I mean poverty, I mean prejudice, I mean to some extent privilege and what that brings, but most importantly that superiority-inferiority complex that we all seem to suffer from. That starts a narrative that says give up before you start, because it's inescapable, the limitations that you have set ahead of you. And there was something about that which shifted in 2023-24. I know you're not a total fan of professional sports, but something very powerful happened with the victory of the World Cup last year. Three things that were for me quite significant. The first was Russia's idea that to win a World Cup was not enough. We needed to establish ourselves as a major player on the rugby world, knowing how important rugby seems to be for South Africans. So it wasn't enough to win something. It had to be established. There needed to be an establishment, which is, if we know business, a difficult thing to do. It's easy to make. What do they say? It's easy to make your first million, not so easy to make your third and your fourth. So to establish yourself as a major player. The second thing that they got right was that the grit and the determination that it required in order to win that with everything against us became the defining moments for that victory. And that spoke a lot about what is beautiful about South Africans is you can give us diversity. We are diverse. You can give us adversity, and we will be able to survive no matter what's thrown at you. What upsets me is that it almost feels as if adversity is thrown at us nilly-willy because we can survive it. That's abusing our adversity. But you cannot deny South Africans. We are able to take a hell of a load on and still make it work. And the third thing was the beauty of the way in which Siya Kolisi was able to be such a human being. One of the most identifiable faces, but there were so many accounts from players of the other teams that were playing. I mean, high pressure situations. When a guy got a yellow card, or when a guy got a ban, or when a guy got injured, they would always say, the first person to WhatsApp them was Siya Kolisi, checking if they were okay. And there's something about that even in our moment of excelling on the world stage, it's still very much packaged in the idea of human connection, humility. And I think that's something that the rest of the world has been missing for a while, and that's something to celebrate.
I hear what you're saying. There's a couple of things to celebrate. Maybe not a long list of things, but important things that I think we should celebrate, and important experiences that we need to share with the world and talk to the world about. I want to just touch base before we got to say goodbye, touch base on the issue of how profoundly young people are driving a new future and a different agenda nearly. And somebody said, with the authority to say it, that the consumption of media elsewhere, not traditional media sources, has profoundly impacted the outlook of all generations, short of the baby boomers. That there's profound change, especially off the back of serious stuff like COVID-19, Iraq, and all of the crazy wars that we've seen in the past 2 decades. How do you think that's going to come to bear on the future? Or are those baby boomers that are holding on to power just going to ride roughshod over changing mindsets?
I don't know how it's going to change. I mean, that's the beauty of the future, is that it's unpredictable. I suppose in my own little humble way, I'm hoping I can be some form of influence. I'm hoping that where it changes to is a more conscientious, a more diverse, and a more accepting of diversity. So leading into curiosity, towards wanting to find a way towards a principle rather than good versus evil, towards humanity and self-empowerment within that humanity. And it's starting to show a little bit. So I'm hoping that plays itself out. But I think it requires us to break free of the chains of the mind that we've been plagued with in the past. And what's beautiful about it is that it's not only a South African thing.
No, it's a global thing. It's a youth-led thing. Is it from independence to interdependence?
Hopefully. I mean, evolution must go up, right? Hopefully.
Hopefully. We're going to rest it there. Thank you, Daniel Den Holland. Always a pleasure chatting with you, our favorite clinical psychologist. And he joins us intermittently once a month. And we lie on the couch collectively, and he helps us think through things.